Welcome to TaNaCh Talk. I'm your host, William Hall, broadcasting live out of Kingsland, Texas, USA, with another episode of Torah Talk Weekly Parsha. This week we're studying Parshat Tetsaveh, which is going to be found in Exodus chapter 27-something through 30-something. Thank you, Rabbi Kormornick, for joining us once again. Really enjoy your time here and very appreciative of the extra weeks you put in to help fill in. This is very helpful. So, and we like I said, we enjoy your teachings to begin with, and we're looking forward to tonight's Parsha.
Thank you. Again, it's a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful.
I'm sorry that Rabbi Mullet has to suffer and not be here with you, but I'm at least enjoying my time.
Yay.
So I'm very grateful to everybody involved.
Certainly appreciate that very much. Okay, so without further ado, I'll go ahead and pass this on to you, and let's see what's going on.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Yes,
Apologies in advance if I'm slurring my words. I'm actually very, very tired. It's not because I had a few gin and tonics just before I came. I'm not saying I didn't have a few gin and tonics, but that's not why I'm slurring my words.
You know, it's really funny. I heard the funniest thing one time. Now that you said that, one guy, it was a comedian, a comedian a long time ago. He goes, I used to drink. He goes, I still do, but I used to also.
That's a good line.
Okay, turning it over to you, sir.
That's a good line.
And
Purim's coming up, so one needs to practice.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Okay, here we go.
Okay, so Tetsaveh, there's a lot to talk about, and I'll try and do some of that. We spoke last week a lot about charity and giving to charity. That was Parashas Truma. That was Truma itself means donations. Tetsaveh is speaking about the vessels of the temple of the tabernacle. They were everything that was made up of the tabernacle was donated. Either it was donated through financial donations, donated through property that people had, or donated through time and the energies of individual people. I wanted to finish what I said last week and begin what I'm saying this week with a linking theme, which is, we spoke last week about charity, and the main point of what I said was one doesn't lose from charity. I hopefully said more points than that, but the main thrust of what I was saying was one doesn't lose if they give charity. We also spoke about how if somebody has charity, we can talk about it. We can say it's regarding financial elements. We can say it's to do with one's skills, one's time, a smile. Whatever one can give doesn't need to be money, doesn't need to be a meal. It could just be of themselves. That's also a form of charity. And in fact, if we take it to the extreme, then everything that we have should be tithed to an extent. And we should be able to give our skills or a percentage of our skills to others to help them. That really will make the world a much better place. Besides being a mitzvah, which already makes the world a better place. So regarding this, there's an obvious question. I said a bold statement, which is one gives charity, one doesn't lose. So I'm not the greatest mathematician, probably in the top 5. But let's do the following. Let's do a test to see if I'm right. I say one who gives charity doesn't lose. Is that true? Okay, so here we go. Moshe Kormornick has $100. By the way, if you want to make that happen, click in the link below. I'm just kidding. Moshe Kormornick has $100.
Nice.
Yeah. Could you put up a link? I mean, we didn't speak about this, but if you could quickly, like, PayPal. Moshe Kormornick.
I'll take a few enough for a cup of coffee myself. So,
So I have $100. Okay. Bear with me. This is very complicated math over here. I have $100. Remember, I said someone who gives charity doesn't lose. I have $100. I give $10. Now, forgive me if I'm inaccurate here, but that leaves me with $90, right? If I have 100 and I give I have $90, so I did lose. Last week we said, no, you didn't lose because really this $10 is going to be made up. It's going to be made up. Somehow we're going to get the money. Somehow we're going to not lose the money somehow. It's true that is the answer. But on the face of it, somebody who's going through the challenge of wanting to give tzedakah, wanting to give charity, and needing their money, and it's hard. It's hard to give over one's hard-earned money that they feel that they worked hard for and they deserve, and to give it to somebody, and they can even have crazy thoughts in their head that they don't deserve it and they didn't work so hard and all these terrible thoughts. And and it's difficult to give one's hard-earned money to other people, to other causes, even if we believe them. It's human nature for something like that to be difficult. So I wanted to put a nice take on it, and that's as follows. Let's say in the form of a parable. I like this parable. A boy went to the post office, and she weighs it and said, "It's too heavy. You need to put on another stamp." So the boy innocently says, "Well, that will just make it heavier." What he doesn't realize is the stamp is the thing that makes it go. So everything I said before, it's our hard-earned money, it's difficult. It's true, that's our nature. But what's the truth? We think that I've earned $100 and therefore I have to give $10 to charity. That's perhaps the wrong way to look at it. Maybe it could be, I have to give $10 to charity. In the heavens, whatever it's decreed, I have to give $10 to charity. How do I go about doing that? Well, God's got to give me $100. So if we look at it that way, it becomes so much easier. Last week we said, when I have $100, I should only think about, Hashem's only giving me $900. No, wrong. If I have $1,000, Hashem's only giving me $900 and he's entrusting me with $100 to give to somebody else. That's certainly a very good way of thinking about it, and I said it, so it must be true. But now let's just take it a step further. Why did I get the $1,000? Perhaps it was only to give the $100. Perhaps when I have $100, it's only to give the $10. And therefore, imagine if I didn't do what Hashem is entrusting me to do. We spoke about kosher money last week. It's very important. It's a mindset. I guess a lot of what I speak about is mindsets, and I think that's certainly important. I think it's a good message to begin the class with, because we are learning about what the Jewish people did in the desert for the tabernacle and for everything. And you know, the tabernacle wasn't a poor person standing in front of them with their, grubby hands and saying, "Please give." And there wasn't a heartbreaking story. It was an edifice for God, which you could say, well, I don't know, God could make it himself. He can make it beautiful. Why does he need me? And if we have that, why does he need me? Or even the poor person in front of me, the gin and tonic, the poor person in front of me, that's one thing. But God could do anything. He could, as it were, and he doesn't have fingers, but he could click his fingers and he could make the most beautiful tabernacle in the world. Why does he need me? Yet, that's not the right message. The right message is God gave me everything in order for me to give. And it's true, in order for me to give $10, I need to have $100. So I'm going to be blessed with $100. I think if we start thinking like that, then the world will become a richer place. Because firstly, when we give, as I said, we get more and other people gain. So it's a beautiful message. Okay, let's move on. The Parsha Tetsaveh also speaks about a lot of things. The menorah comes up quite a few times. Excuse me for a second.
No worries.
The menorah comes up. The menorah is the what's the English word for that? What's the English word for the
like candelabra, sort of, or the
there you go, candelabra.
Okay.
So I want to speak about that a little bit because there are beautiful messages from that. Also, it's important to note that in the Holy Scriptures, often the menorah is the representative of Torah. Everything in the tabernacle is I think of the words, a microcosm of the world. It's a microcosm of a man. There's so much depth. Firstly, there's so much depth to Torah. Know that. There's so much depth to everything we learn. But when it comes to the tabernacle, just if you think about it, I used to have this question. I still really have this question, but here's more or less the answer. If I was writing the Torah, it wouldn't be a good idea. But let's say I was. I don't know. I would say stealing and killing and all these things which are relevant for every generation, they should have prime place, front and center in the Torah. When it comes to the things that were thousands of years ago, which are only going to last a certain amount of time, and it was only for that generation, so I would have said, okay, you know what? I'm going to tell you what to do. Because many things that God told the Jewish people, and we don't know about it in the Torah. When God said, go to this location, we don't have a quote from God. God said, go to this location. The Torah is telling us what God wants us to know, what he wants us to learn for. Yet we spend so much time, so much ink, so many words on things that happened thousands of years ago that are literally not relevant to us. We don't have a tabernacle right now. And even if we did have the Beis HaMikdash, the Holy Temple, it wouldn't be the tabernacle. So why spend so much time on it? Again, we've said many times, the whole purpose of, as I said it a minute ago, the whole purpose of Torah is that God is teaching us. The word Torah comes from the word Torah. It's come to teaching. It teaches us many things, but certainly it's teaching us life lessons for us today. And therefore, when we know about when we learn about the Mishkan, the tabernacle, and we're told that the shulchan, the table, goes here, and the menorah goes here, and what goes on it, and everything, and the curtains, it's very nice, but it's more than very nice. It's very, very nice, because it's also referring to us that if we knew the depth of each thing, and our commentators tell us, open a book, and if you can, and learn, and we're told the shulchan, the table, represents various forms of financial elements, and the menorah is Torah. And if we looked at the Bible in a way that every single word matters and means something to me, then when we go through a page, firstly, take a lot longer to go through a page, but when we go through a page, we'll get so much out of it. It's not a story, and it's not what was then, it's God telling us right now. So that's why, we're blessed to sort of pick up verses over here and find a word and say, this is a teaching. We're not making this stuff up. I mean, sometimes I do, but hopefully, we're not making this stuff up and it's just random. This is truth. This is what God wanted you to know. This is why it's in the Torah, so that we can learn from it. It's not what was, it's what is, and what we should learn from. So one of the instances, and firstly, one of the ways that we really know to wave a flag is if I've said it before in probably an inappropriate way, but if a weird word comes up, if a word that, shouldn't really be there, doesn't really make sense. So we could say, who are we to judge? Well, think about it. God is giving us a message. And within the message, if he does something different than we would have expected, and obviously our expectations are based on the rules and the knowledge that we have from Torah, then it's something to pay attention to. So let's take an example right now of one of those. So I'm going to 27:20. I'm going to read the English, but I'll say the Hebrew word because it's important. So it says, and they shall take for you clear olive oil, crushed for illumination, to raise a continuous flame. Now the word in Hebrew is la'alot. Is it? Yes. La'alot. To raise up. Now the commentators say this word is actually strange. Let's say it like that. Because it should have said, and they shall take for you clear olive oil. They were talking about, let me say what we're talking about. We're talking about the menorah, lighting the candles. So it shall take for you clear olive oil, crushed for illumination, to raise a continuous flame. It shouldn't have said that. It should have said light a continuous flame. What do? You're making oil and you're lighting the candle.
Rabbi, did you say Exodus 27:20? Yes.
Did I get it wrong?
No, you're right. I was looking at 21. I apologize. Go ahead.
It's fine. I'm glad to have you here.
Okay. Thanks.
No, otherwise I feel like I'm speaking to myself.
Right.
So you know what, William, in fact, I'm going to make some mistakes over the course of the next 45 minutes.
Okay.
And that's just a test that you're awake. Okay.
Fair enough. Okay.
So Rashi says, I'm joking, it's the Mizrahi. Okay. The Mizrahi points out that the word should have been, and he lights the continuous flame. He lights it. But what do we say? He raises it. So let's, take a step back and say God is writing the Torah for us. So why did God write a word that seemingly doesn't fit? Obviously, it's a message. So let's suggest the message. Let's even say the message that the Mizrahi said. So as I said before, the menorah, the candelabra, it represents Torah. And therefore, somebody who is lighting the menorah represents somebody who's lighting Torah, who's teaching Torah, who's encouraging others to learn Torah. And therefore now we can look at the verse again. So, and they shall take for you clear olive oil crushed for illumination. By the way, we're not going into it, but each word over here and the fact that we need to know it also teaches something. But let's focus on this. So they shall take for you all these things, and they shall raise a continuous flame. So if we're taking it on a deeper level, one who's lighting Torah in others should raise a continuous flame. So accordingly, we have a nice message, not just a nice message, a message of truth and a message we can live by. We're all responsible for ourselves and each other, but certainly, even when I said before that, we've all got to use our skills and our talents for other people. It's true, and therefore, if we learn something, we should teach it. Besides that, there's a mitzvah to teach Torah. There's not just a mitzvah. Imagine you knew something that was so great. I don't know, go to a theme park, and is the best theme park ever. Okay, it has. I don't like theme parks, but it has big rides, big scary rides, and you love them for some strange reason. So you love these big weird rides, and you're obsessed with it, and you had the best time, and it was really cheap. Okay, and so that's, yeah. Now you have friends and you have family, and you like them, assumingly, and hopefully, and you want to share what you learned with them because you had a great time, you like them, you love them, and you want them to have a great time too. So the more we value Torah, the more we get excited by Torah, the more we love Torah and feel its value within us and how it can help other people. So of course we're going to teach it to other people. Why wouldn't we? I've got the winning lottery ticket over here. Of course I'm going to share it with you. Bearing in mind that's not going to deduct from our winnings, William.
I hope not.
Actually, that's we said last week, but that's one of the beauties of a flame. That's another reason why we learn specifically flame with Torah is when I light, or when somebody lights, when you light, when somebody lights Torah from somebody else, when someone lights a flame, their flame is not diminished. So don't think, why should I spend an hour giving a class to the thing? You know, I could be learning so much more. I'm not talking about myself. I'm saying I could be learning so much more in that time. Well, 1 second. You've been teaching. You are not diminished. Not just you do not diminish that hour won't go to waste. You will gain. You'll actually, when you light, everything's true. When you light a flame, it actually goes up for a second. So when you teach somebody else, you actually go up for a second. By the way, I just want to take. I don't know if I'm allowed to, but I hope I am. But I'm going to take it even a tiny bit deeper. Okay, loads and loads deeper. But I'm just going to say it in a very Makatsa way, in a very short, in a succinct way. We don't learn the message from the flame. I mean, I'm saying there's a message from the flame. The message is there, and a flame represents Torah, and therefore it goes up. The truth is, we only have a flame because that's the truth behind it. That didn't make sense. Let me say it, trying to say it better. Why does a flame go? We don't say a flame goes up when it lights, it doesn't diminish, and it represents Torah, and therefore we learn a message from that when we light up other people with Torah, we also don't diminish. That's not the right way to look at it. The truth is that since God made light represent Torah, and because light represents Torah, and because the truth of the matter is one whose lighting Torah does not diminish, therefore the flame goes up. It's not the other way around. Okay, that's perhaps a bit too deep. But maybe it was the gin and tonic that brought it out, which I didn't really have. And this is not vodka, it's water. Or is it?
Maybe it's tequila.
William, we had a whole conversation about you weren't gonna tell anyone. Where were we? Okay, so we said the following message. A flame should have said when we go to the menorah and we light the flame. It doesn't. It says when we raise the flame. Then we said that the menorah represents Torah, and therefore somebody who's lighting the menorah is lighting Torah in other people. They're lighting Torah. They're spreading Torah in the world, spreading the light of Torah. And therefore, why is the word raise over here? Now, I'll tell you a halacha. I'll tell you a law that we learned from here. It's actually very applicable even on Shabbos candles, and certainly on Hanukkah as well. When we light candles, we shouldn't just light. Sorry, forgive me the pen. When we light a candle, we shouldn't just light it and walk away. Flick the light and then remove our hands. No, we should go, light it, and keep our hands there until it's raised. This is what we learned from this verse. We should keep it there for a few seconds until the light has caught properly. It's obviously going to catch, otherwise we'd just have to light it again. We have to light it properly, wait for a second, and then pull away. That's what we have to do. And we learned it from this verse and various other places. What's the message? The message is when we are teaching Torah to other people, and when I say other people, when I say Torah, I really mean God's wisdom. And when I say other people, I include children, neighbors, friends. I don't mean in an official role of teaching. When we are imparting wisdom, Torah wisdom, to other people, it's not enough to just throw them something and let them go for it by themselves. One needs to give them this wisdom, wait for it to impact on them, and then guide them in a way. So many times it's a big criticism, unfortunately, of a lot of busy, wonderful people. Those are the teachers even, and the criticism, I don't see a resolution for it, but it is what it is. That there are wonderful teachers, and they're able to inspire people, and these people are inspired, and they want to do loads of things, and they try and grow, and they try and do various things, and they take on a lot, and then all of a sudden they feel like by themselves. So this person who's wonderful, he's wonderful, and he has to spread the light of Torah. At the same time, there needs to be, here's an appeal. Here we go. There is in many circumstances, but even more so, there needs to be a support system for those who have been lit, and to help raise them. That is the message of this verse. It's not enough to light the spark in somebody. One should also be there enough to raise them. Physically, it might mean, staying with them, counseling them, or passing them on to somebody else. It just needs to be. One can't take responsibility for putting somebody in a new life position where they are very vulnerable potentially, and they have this new knowledge and excitement, but they don't know how to use it properly, and leave them to be, because that could be disastrous. The message over here is when you ignite somebody, when you merit to teach someone Torah that they're going to change their life with, the person who's doing that has got a responsibility to make sure that they're there the whole time, that until they've properly caught. I actually heard a story. I'll tell you two stories about this. So first one was with Rav Adio Lopian. And there was a boy from London, and he went to Israel to try to learn in the famous yeshiva of Rav Adio Lopian. And in England, his education was not amazing. I'm not saying anything about England. I was born there. I have plenty to say about England. But he was there, and his personal education was not so wonderful, or at least maybe it was, and he wasn't so wonderful. The message is he wasn't super bright, and he wanted to go to this yeshiva. So he was told, he knew that the Rosh Yeshiva of Eliyahu would, it's Mashgiach, I think, he would test him. So he purposely learned a page or two of Gemara, of Talmud, and he went and he knocked on the door, and he said, I would like to come to be welcomed into the yeshiva. I'd like to come to the yeshiva. So he said, oh, wonderful. He started to ask him questions, and he said, have you prepared anything for, so we can see if it's suitable? So he said, yes, I prepared the first page of Maseches Beitzah, the Talmud of Beitzah, which is the laws of Yom Tov, is the laws of the festivals. And fine, okay. So he said, the rabbi obviously knew by heart, and he said, tell me what you know. And he asked him questions, and each question, the kid got flustered, and he was nowhere. He didn't know anything. And after every time the answer was more abysmal than the previous one, the question got easier. And the rabbi, with his famously warm smile and kind nature, he would ask even easier questions. And every single question, the answer was, not relevant. Finally, the rabbi he thought of the most possible, the easiest question he could ask. And he said, what do you do with an egg on the festivals? So the questions he wanted to ask were the deepest questions. But he said, what do you do with an egg on festivals? Because the first mission, the first teaching in this Gemara is about an egg that's laid on the festival. Can you eat it? Can you eat it on that Yom Tov? Can you eat it on the festival or not? So he wanted to know, just get a conversation, get one answer from the boy, give him a bit of confidence or something. So he said, what can you do with an egg on the festival? And that opened up. He could have answered anything, got it right. And the poor kid got flustered, and he's like, what do you do with an egg on Yom Tov if it's laid on the festival? You make scrambled egg. So I would have been shocked, but I'm sure the rabbi was. If he was shocked, it was a split second. And he gave a warm smile. And he said, my son, that wasn't the right answer, but I can see how clever you must be and how quick your mind is, because I asked a question, and of course, what is the first thing you would think of? What do you do with an egg? You make a scrambled egg. Okay, the answer was just a warm thing that the rabbi did, but the boy was so, his confidence was so boosted from this praise that he was just beaming. And the rabbi said, because I see that you got such a quick mind, I'm going to welcome you into the yeshiva, and I'm going to, give you a bit of help and look after you a little bit. So that's what he did. For years, this boy came to the yeshiva, and the rabbi found extra tutors for him. And, when he said originally, why do you want to come here? He said, you've inspired me. So the rabbi knew that once he'd inspired the person, he had to go beyond the letter of the law to welcome him and help him. And this person, who he grew up to be? I'm joking, I don't know who he grew up to be. But I do know that he had a family. He had a family of Torah scholars come after him. It could be that he did not grow up. I mean, I know the story. I don't know who we're talking about, but I know the story. And he didn't grow up to be the greatest of the greatest. I'm sure he was great in his own way. But he grew up because the rabbi didn't just light the flame. And didn't just say, okay, find a different place. You wanted to come here, it doesn't work out, find a different place. He took him in, he raised him, and he raised the flame. Actually, I said this guy didn't turn out to be the greatest of anything, but I did hear a story, a similar story about after the funeral of Ovadia Yosef. So somebody came, a famous Dayan, a famous judge came, a Jewish judge in Jewish law, of Jewish courts, I should say. He came. And he said, to the family, I didn't tell you this, but I want you to know where I came from. And he came from the slums of, I'm not going to say the place, but he said the slums of somewhere. And one day he was playing soccer on Shabbos, and he kicked a ball, and it hit Rabbi Ovadia Yosef's hat, knocked it off. And, one should be shocked at such a thing, but he was like, jackpot, I got it. And instead of being annoyed or, putting some sort of curse on the person, Rabbi Yosef turned to him and he said, you look hungry, you want to come eat? And the kid was so flustered, and he was basically living on the streets. He was so flustered, he said, yes, I'm starving. And he went to the rabbi's house, and it was Shabbos. He said, you may as well stay for Shabbos, after. He says, well, I want to go. He says, well, where would you like to go? He said, I want to go to the cinema. So the rabbi said, do you have money to go to the cinema? He said, no, but I'll find it somehow. And the rabbi said, wait till after Shabbos, stay here for after Shabbos, and then I'll give you the money, you'll go to the cinema. So that's what he did. Apparently he did that. Every week he came, and then he came stayed for longer. Eventually this person really did turn out to be a great Torah scholar and a famous one. And he put it all down to the fact that Rav Ovadia Yosef lit the flame, but didn't just light the flame, he raised the flame. He carried this person, and he became great. And I guess the message to us, as we always need to take the message, is that whatever wisdom we're imparting, don't just do a hit and run. Try. I mean, it's impossible. I'm speaking to millions of people, no doubt. And although I actually did get some mail, I should say, it's a bit freaky, but I did. And although I'm teaching about how it's so important, and here I am teaching, and then no one I'm not speaking to anyone necessarily afterwards. I mean, you're welcome to email me. My email is below, next to the PayPal link. So I know what I'm saying, but you've got to live within our limitations, and therefore we've got to try our best. And certainly when it comes to people who we can impact and can help and can raise, then we should take the responsibility to go as far as we can to help them. That's really the message. We should be helping other people in every way. We should be imparting our wisdom, Torah wisdom, to them, and if they're amenable, we should carry them through. Along the lines, moving on, along the lines of the menorah and lighting the menorah. So it also says, here's 27:20. There you go, William. That's your verse.
27:20. It's back up on the screen right now.
Oh, I don't see screens. Oh, you're so fancy.
And you shall command the children of Israel, and they shall take to you pure olive oil crushed for lighting, to kindle the lamps continually.
I did not know I would get an assistant, but this is wonderful.
Hey, you get one better. Here we go. Actually, I can't see it. It's too small. I was going to read the Hebrew too, but it's too small on the screen. I can't read it.
Oh, impressive. Okay.
It's all yours.
The words I want to focus on, you're right. You shall take for you pure olive oil, crushed for lighting, and kindle the lamps continually. There's a lot to say on every single word over here, but I want to focus on on the one message, and that is pure olive oil. Actually, what is a pure olive oil? Shemen zach, I think that's the word. Shemen zach, the pure olive oil. It was actually the first drop of the olive to make the oil, and the rest. It's actually very interesting. The first drop was used for the menorah. We said before that the menorah represents Torah. The rest of the oil from that olive was used for the sacrifice. Now, I said before that when it comes to different areas, it's a microcosm for the world, it's a microcosm for our body, it's a microcosm for microcosm for various different things. And the korban, the sacrifice, represents physicality. Let's say physicality. It represents various things, financial physicality. Let's just put it this way in terms. Menorah represents Torah and spirituality, and korban, sacrifice, represents physicality. So it's a beautiful message. Why do they do anything in any way? So it's always for us. It's so true. It's a message for us, but it's a message for them at the same time. We can learn so much. What did they do? They took a bit of the first drop, the perfect first drop of olive oil, and that went into the menorah. Afterwards, it was already, it wasn't the first one, it wasn't the best. So that went to the sacrifice. What do we learn from here? When it comes to spirituality, we have to give it the best. We have to invest the best. When it comes to education of ourselves, when it comes to spending money on buying books, on learning, we have to invest the money because it's such an investment, and it has to be perfect. We have to really, really spend, and we have to really, really do the best for when it comes to spirituality. When it's our kids and getting them tutors, it might be difficult, but we have to spend. All these things, we need to give it the best. But when it comes to physicality, second best is fine. The rest of the oil, that's fine. It's also oil. It's great, and it does a good job. But it doesn't need to be the best. Does it really need to be the best? Physicality, where's our focus on life? If we're focusing on spirituality, then we're going to strive to make it perfect. Also, we know the value of it. We know the importance of it. Physicality and, this jacket, that jacket, I'm spending money, fine. And spend as much money as you want, fine. Give tithing and charity, say that, fine, give as much, but don't be obsessed. If you're obsessed with the physicality, then at least be more obsessed with the spirituality. Don't be OCD if you can help it, but do that. Just put your priorities in the right place. I just remember hearing a story about a Rebbe in America, and he got his house. He wanted his house painted, and he called a person in, and it was a Gentile person. And he was very keen on getting business for the Jewish community. So he came in, and it was a Rebbe, and he said, Rabbi, I'm going to do the most perfect job. It's going to be perfect. And the Rabbi said, perfect? No, you can't do perfect. So he said, I can do perfect. I'll prove it to you. So the Rabbi said, no, you didn't understand. He said, I don't want perfect. You won't be able to do perfect because without God coming down and bringing the temple, there's no such thing as perfection when the world is not perfect, when God is not here and the Messiah is not here, etc., etc. When Mashiach is not here. There's no such thing as perfection. And not only that, I don't want perfection. I don't want my focus to be, this wall has to be perfectly painted. Do your best, work hard like I'm paying you, and finish. That's what you should be doing. Don't strive for perfection because it's false. It's false. Perfection in physicality is false. Perfection in character building, in spirituality, that's something to strive for, something to invest in, something to spend our time and energies and our money and our means in. But physicality, I'm not one of those people who say you should live in poverty. Everyone should live in the means that they're able to be happy and healthy and grow. But it shouldn't be the focus. It shouldn't be the focus. And if it is the focus, spend even more on the other thing. So at the end of the story, this is Gentile. He did a great job, I'm sure. Or not, but the rabbi wouldn't notice. But I'm sure he did a great job, and he got him. Once you do work for the Rebbe, so everyone wants you. So this guy, he went into everyone else's house. And the next guy's house he went into, he came in, and the guy said, "Okay, you have to paint my wall." He said, "And I want you to make it perfect." Apparently, this Gentile said to him, he said, "Perfect? But the Beis Hamikdash isn't here. The temple isn't here. How can you want it perfect?" He screamed to this guy. So he took the message. So we should certainly take the message. Where was I? I was talking about pure olive oil and the fact that For the spirituality has to be perfect. What does that mean? Take it further. When it comes to spirituality, we should try our best. Obviously, I'm saying lofty ideas, and I'm trying to live by them, but probably failing miserably in many circumstances. But if I speak about it enough, maybe it'll help me. But the idea is, when it comes to spirituality, when it comes to learning, when it comes to spending our time focused on growth, personal growth, religious growth, then there should be no mixtures of foreign elements. That's the message over here. We said the menorah represents Torah, spirituality. The oil certainly. And therefore, what goes into this oil? The first perfect drop. No mixture of foreign input. As much as we can. We live in a world, in a wider world, in a secular world. But if when I give you one example just on top of my head, that if let's say we dedicate an hour to learning, so an hour of our day is to learning. So there doesn't need to be a phone on. There doesn't need to. If you're learning with a study partner, you could say, I'm striving perfection here. But I'm just saying, you could say, listen, for this hour we're learning. Let's not talk about anything else. We have a TaNaCh dibur. It's like fasting for words. That's what you say. Yeah. For this hour we only speak in Torah, Torah growth, etc. Afterwards we can we can speak as much as you like. That's what I try and do with my learning partner. We learn for a few hours in the afternoon, and we say the first X amount of time. That's it. Torah, only Torah. If you have anything to say, write it down. We'll speak about it afterwards. But we can all strive to it. The message is there. So we should be foreign should be absent from foreign mixtures. Now it is very hard to do that, and the greatest of the greats, they've achieved it, and they can be put in the most difficult tests, and they can succeed. And it's something that we should strive to as well. I heard a beautiful story about the Rosh Yeshiva of the Mir Yeshiva, Rabbi Moshe Kormornick, and I think this story, to an extent, shows his greatness in certainly in this area, but also perhaps puts it my message in a slightly different way. So he was incredible. He was doing a fundraising event for the Yeshivas Mir, which I think their yearly budget is millions of dollars. And he had somebody who come to him, a supporter, somebody who was very into him and into the yeshiva. I think it was Harold Schultz. I'm sure someone in the comments will correct it. The CEO, who's not maybe the CEO anymore, of Starbucks. He became very close to Rosh Yeshiva. So at some point, the Rav Nosson Tzvi Finkel, welcomed him in, and this person said, Rabbi, I'm in. I know you need $20 million, whatever. I'm in. Here's my checkbook. Write whatever you need. Write what you're comfortable with. So Rav Nosson Tzvi said to him, I should write whatever I'm comfortable with. I should write whatever I need. So this person, I'm not saying his name, it was Schultz. I'm pretty sure it was, but I'll just say this person. So this person said, yeah, whatever you need. Just write yourself the number. So the rabbi said, fine. He took the checkbook, he wrote a number, and he gave it back to this person. And this person was shocked. Why? He said, Rabbi, $1,400? Do you know what I'm worth? $1,400? What are you going to buy with $1,400? And the rabbi said, what am I going to buy? This is for you. So he was even more surprised. He said, what am I going to buy with $1,400? He said, I want you to go across the street. I want you to buy yourself some tefillin, phylacteries. Buy yourself some tefillin and wear them every day. So that was mind-blowing. This story became famous. Why did it become so famous? Everyone who knows anything about Rav Nosson Tzvi Finkel is just wowed by every story they hear, and it's all true. Now, this story for me really says this message. Somebody who's dedicated to building a yeshiva, not just a yeshiva, a dynasty of Torah study in Israel, and there's thousands and thousands. I merited to learn there. Thousands and thousands of people learning there, and the study halls are huge, and the people who support it, it needs money. And here is somebody who is very wealthy and saying, Rabbi, tell me what you need. And you know what he needed? He needed the Jew in front of him to wear tefillin. That was his. He was the Shemen Zayzach. He was the pure oil, because above everything, he did not forget the perfection of what it is to teach Torah. When you're able to affect somebody in a positive way, it's true he could have got millions, and I'm sure he did. I'm sure he did. But this message, it could have, and it was true. It was honest. It wasn't a gimmick. He wanted the Jew in front of him, and perhaps it's even related to the message we said before about raising the Torah. He didn't just inspire this person to give; he inspired him and raised him to make a commitment to Torah and mitzvahs. And so that this message is just links everything together for me. That you have a person who's so pure in his appreciation of Torah. He didn't see the money, even though the money was Torah for him, but he saw an opportunity right there, and he knew this is what God wanted him to do. And he said, here's a $1,400, go and put the tefillin on. And also we can learn that he also took responsibility, and he wasn't just, I've inspired you, I'll take your money, and, I don't want you to learn Torah, I want you to work harder so I can get even more money. He didn't do that. So I think that's another message to learn from over there. Okay. Another point, actually, I'll say this because we're coming up to the year since the loss of the greatest Torah leader of recent times, Rav Chaim Kanievsky, and there's a story over here that there's many things to learn about what happens if somebody is learning Torah purely. But the story that came to mind was many years ago. Rav Chaim used to learn. Full stop. He used to learn. That is what he did. He learned everything and all the time. And he had a study partner, and he actually had many. But his study partner, he made one prerequisite to studying with him. You're not allowed to cancel. If you're learning with Rav Chaim, you're learning with him. I think they had a 4 o'clock. He said 4 o'clock a.m. 4 o'clock every morning. You're learning. There's no cancellations. There's no reason to cancel. There's no nothing. Don't give up the chance to learn with Chaim Kanievsky very easily. And this person said, Rabbi, I want to agree. I agree 100%. However, the many times in the winter where I'm ill, since he was already an old man, this person who wanted to learn Rav Chaim, he said, I've never gone through a winter without taking a few weeks off here and a few weeks off there, ever. I'm ill. So Rav Chaim said, no, if you commit purely to Torah, you won't need to take off anything. So with a promise from Rav Chaim like that, he was in. So he said, okay. And he learned day in, day out with Rav Chaim for years and years and years. And not once did he ever get ill, and he never had to take the day off. However, one time, his great-grandson made a circumcision, a bris milah, and they wanted to honor him, this Rav Chaim's chavrusa, with being the Sandakos, for being the person who holds the baby, and it's a very prestigious offer, and also a family member, and therefore he agreed. Now, in order for him to agree, he had to travel to, I think, Jerusalem. He was already in Bnei Brak. He had to travel to Jerusalem to pray over there, to do the whole thing. He had to cancel Reb Chaim. So he did. He called and he said, I'm sorry, I've been honored in this thing, and I apologize. So fine. So he did that. The next day he became ill. And for years and years he didn't. And he went to Reb Chaim and he said, yeah, how unfortunate. And Reb Chaim said, no, not unfortunate. The entire time you are fully committed to Torah, you are fully the pure oil, then that pure oil is sanctified, it's protected. God's going to look after it in such a way that he's going to make you also, again, another thing, that oil rises. If you put oil and water, even if you put the oil at the bottom, you pour water on it, oil will always rise. When you put that oil in, when you put Torah, when you put spirituality above everything else, then God's going to protect you. The fact, it's true, you did a huge mitzvah. You did a huge mitzvah and you went there, and I understand. But the fact that you took away from the Torah for a second, you said, I'm not learning today. We'll make up the time, I'm sure, but you took away that perfection of the Torah learning. So all of a sudden you're no longer as invincible as you were. You're no longer under God's, don't say protection, but you're no longer on the level on the level of someone who's dedicated themselves to live with such purity. And therefore, yeah, you got ill because you became more living in the mundane world. That was amazing. So you want to hear another story of Chaim? Stay in the story of Chaim. Okay, there's an amazing story. It actually links to this week's Parsha as well. The verse says, second. William, you there for me? 28:2.
I am here, and 28:2 is coming up at a theater near you. Here we go. 28:2. You shall make holy garments for your brother Aaron for honor and glory.
Okay. Honor and glory. Actually, I wrote down glory and splendor. The Hebrew words are lechavod u'letiferes. Lekavod. Kavod is honor, I guess. And tiferes is splendor. So what? Yeah, okay. Same thing. The point is this. And again, we've said it many, many times, and I said it even before that, when the verse says something, it's coming to teach us something, especially when there is something extra, so when something superfluous, when there's something strange, let's say. So in this case, so you shall make clothes of sanctity for Aaron your brother, for glory and splendor, for honor and for splendor. So we needed to hear, two adjectives. I think that's the word. We need it for honor and splendor. And what about, good looks, nice smell? What are we being taught over here? Just say, make clothes of sanctity for your brother Aaron, of glory, of honor, of splendor. One of them. Why do we need to be taught two things? So the Sephorno, one of the commentators, he learns, and for various reasons, he says the first word, covered, honor, that means you're wearing the clothes. The Kohen Gadol, Aaron was the Kohen Gadol, he was the high priest. He had to wear beautiful clothes for Hashem's honor. Hashem's honor, and therefore it has to be beautiful. So that was the first word, the covered, the glory, the honor. And also you need to wear it for splendor. What's the second word? If it's already for Hashem's honor, what's the other reason you need to wear nice clothes? That is for your own honor. Because a Torah scholar, somebody who learns Torah, really anyone who represents godliness in whatever way that they can, someone who represents, somebody who's an emissary of God, somebody who's a representative of God. Anyone, I'm not talking about a rabbi, I'm talking about somebody who lives by the values of God. They should they should act appropriately. And in this case, it meant wear beautiful clothes, because Aaron, who is the representative to some degree to a large degree of the service of God, he was the one who served God in the highest level. So for God's sake, sounds terrible. For God's sake, he needed to be he needed to wear beautiful clothes, because it's an affront to God. One who stands before the queen, or the king nowadays. One who stands before the king. So you don't dress like a whatever. You dress like a whatever. And yet that's why, because that's showing respect to God. But even for himself, this is what we're told. Somebody represents God. He's even the emissary of the king, who's not in front of the king, is going to wear nice clothes. Why? Because they represent the king. So that is why Aaron had to wear splendorous clothes for his own sake, even when he wasn't serving God. Because he was a representative of someone who serves God, a representative of God. Everybody, all of us who please God, follow the wisdom of God, the Torah, and whatever we can and whatever we are. If we're on this side, if we're on the right side of life, if we're on God's side, that comes with a responsibility, not just a responsibility to act in a certain way, but to look in a certain way, and to treat people in a certain way, and to spend our money in a certain way, and to not shout in a certain way. There are many circumstances when we are walking around and we have to represent God. Now, I'm not talking about in the prayer hall or the study hall, or when we're making blessings, of course. I'm talking about when when we're in front of other people, and even when we're not in front of other people, we are representatives of God. Forget the fact that he's looking the whole time, just other people looking the whole time. And if they see you who are acting fantastically, then that will be a reflection, of course, on you, and of course on whoever you represent, but that also is of course on God. And one is making a kiddush Hashem, they're sanctifying God's name by walking the street in an appropriate manner. So why did Reb Chaim come up in this story? Because okay, I mean, I guess it's a bit of a squeeze, but when it comes to Torah scholars, especially, not only should they wear clothes, etc., and act in a way that makes them splendorous, but one who's not a Torah scholar, they should speak of Torah scholars, anyone who represents Torah in a good way. They should not defame them, God forbid. They should speak positively about them. Anyone who represents the Torah, and even if you see someone doing something not appropriate, if it's really not appropriate, then they're not representing the Torah. But if it's everyone knows what I'm saying. But we should certainly judge favorably, and certainly someone who represents the Torah should judge favorably. We should be nice to them. We should speak nicely of them. It's very important for our own personality. It's super important for our children to hear this. So this story happened to Rav Chaim, and again, because it's coming up to the year since he passed, it's up to his yard site. So we'll say something in the merit that whatever aliyah, whatever raising of his soul he needs, let's merit to have some sort of merit towards doing that. So Reb Chaim, it's a very famous story. It's a very true story, and I spoke to somebody who heard it from his wife, but it's so true because everyone knows it, and everyone, we're not talking about 100 years ago. This is last year. So this story happened. So Reb Chaim, when he was younger, he wrote a book called TaNaCh. I think that was the name, and it was about grasshoppers, whether grasshoppers are kosher. Don't say ew, because some people eat them and they like them very much. And who knows what you like and what you eat. Maybe I don't like that. Anyway, grasshoppers, which I don't eat. And I wouldn't eat them. And they are a bit ew. He wrote a book about whether they're kosher. William, are you going to tell me that you're chomping on a grasshopper right now?
I'll say you're really missing out if you were like a largemouth bass.
Have you had grasshoppers?
No, I've never eaten a grasshopper.
Did I offend you?
No, not at all. Not at all. I actually thought about trying a chocolate covered grasshopper one time, but I backed out. I couldn't quite follow through.
You wimp.
I know, it's horrible. Sorry for the interruption.
No, on the contrary. So Reb Chaim, he wrote a book, and at one point he was talking about grasshoppers from different communities, different countries, even ancient ones. And there was one part of the book where he got stuck. He got stuck because he needed to understand the anatomy of a grasshopper, and he put his pen down. And I think as soon as he put his pen down, because he couldn't continue, he needed this information, a grasshopper came and landed right in front of him on his thing. These things happen to Reb Chaim. So he looked at it, he studied it. I don't know if he picked it up, but I assume he would be happy to pick it up. And until he was completely satisfied that it was that he'd understood everything he needed to, then he didn't slam. Then he just left it, and it went away. A few days later, he continued to write his book, and he realized that there was something else that he wasn't so sure about, and the grasshopper came back. He spent enough time, and then he finished, and therefore the grasshopper went away. Now that in itself is a wonderful story, and it's everyone knows it because it's so famous, and it happened a few years ago. People know that people know that happened. I didn't even say the main bit of the story, but people know the story is true because not just like from hearing it from other people, it's true. So that was amazing. So as soon as he needed to know the information, the grasshopper came. Now somebody at the time didn't believe the story, and they were in Bnei Brak, and they were they were there, and they publicly said, he's a great Torah scholar, but such miracles happened to him. I don't really believe it. He said it in public, and I think could be that he said even more than that, but that's the story. That's what he said. Now, the next day, this person had 1 million grasshoppers in his house. Now, Reb Chaim didn't know that he didn't know that this person said anything, and he didn't wave his hand and send them. This person had 1 million grasshoppers. It could have been 2 million. It could be, I'm exaggerating. It was 948,012. But there was something like that. It was covered in grasshoppers. Now, the guy didn't put 2 and 2 together, and he called the exterminator, and the exterminators came, and they exterminated. They went away. That's what they do. And the next day, more grasshoppers came. And this happened, different exterminators, and no one can get rid of them. And then he realized, oh, wait, 1 second, grasshoppers, that's familiar. Oh, I said something negative about Reb Chaim Kanievsky, and I didn't believe the story. So he went to the rabbi, he said, what should I do? There's only one thing to do. Go to Reb Chaim, Go to his house, knock on the door. It's just amazing how you think that the greatest Torah scholars in the world, the people who are keeping the world afloat, you could just knock on the door. And so he knocked on the door. Can I? And he apologized. He said, I heard the story about the grasshopper. Chaim smiled. He knew the story. It happened to him. And he said, and Kubri, I didn't believe it. And he said, I apologize. And this is what's happened to my house right now. So please forgive me. So Chaim apparently said, yeah, I forgive you. No problem. You know, it didn't offend me. And they'll go away. Apparently he went home. They were already gone. And he didn't live very far away. And Bnei Brak is a place where grasshoppers don't hang out. There's no chilling place for grasshoppers in Bnei Brak. So that's an amazing story. But even more amazing is apparently every Friday afternoon just before Shabbos, one grasshopper always used to come to this person's house and land on his windowsill. And every week, the wife of this person used to take a picture of the grasshopper and then show it to Rav Chaim's wife, Rav Chaim Kanevsky's wife, to say, look how wonderful your husband is. And that's how everyone knew the story. They could see the pictures. So that is a story about Rav Chaim. And it's relevant. Why, William? Because I'm going to beat you to it. Because
good.
Because no, you go on. No, because we're saying the splendor, the importance that the Aaron HaKohen, who was a Kohen Gadol, he was a high priest, so he had to wear a splendorous clothes for God's sake, for his own sake, and therefore we who see this, we need to understand that a Torah scholar, someone who's represented God, they are acting in a way that is representing God, but we should also look at them in such a way. And therefore this person who didn't look at Reb Chaim in such a way, he didn't look at he happens to be the greatest Torah scholar in the world, but let's take the message over here. If he didn't look at him in an appropriate way and he said things inappropriate about him, and the message to him was, I know grasshoppers are all over you, don't do that again. But the message to us is we should look at those who study Torah, and certainly those who teach Torah in a very splendorous way. There's so much, unfortunately, rabbi bashing and so much negativity that, thank God I'm not on the internet so much. I'm not on social media at all, but it filters through to me. There's so much. Someone's got something to say about a rabbi. The first couple comments on it, it hurts. And I know people who've suffered, and people feel that they've got so much to say. And take a step back and realize, I'm not saying that they're greater than everyone's got their own, but this is how you should treat anyone. You should treat anyone nicely, but certainly somebody who's dedicating their life to God and Torah, they should be treated with respect. I'm perhaps biased. I'm not saying I'm representing anything or anyone. I'm trying to, but in a genuine way, there's teachers can get, okay, I'm not going to go into how little teachers get paid, but the point is to say, if we change our mentality to respect Torah and Torah scholars, then they'll be able to teach better. We'll be able to receive the message in a better way, and the whole world will be a much, we're speaking about fire and lighting them. The whole world will be a brighter place. The whole world will be a better place, because the whole world will be filled with more Torah messages. Rabbis will have, or people will have more confidence to give Torah message. People will be able to listen more. Children will hear better things. So much of what we say at the table filters into our children's lives. And if we're negative about other people, certainly about teachers, even their teachers, which is a mistake, even if they're bad teachers, one shouldn't be saying negative things about teachers, because the teacher represents a higher thing. If children hear negativity about the higher thing, it will automatically and ultimately reflect upon God. So let's finish with this, and forgive me for going over. That was the message over there.
You're fine.
I do want to say, I said before, Rabbi Chaim, you could knock on his door. What we don't get about Torah scholars, and the reason I'm speaking about this is because the Torah speaks about menorah, and we said that the menorah represents Torah. So it's really what God wants us to do. He wants us to learn from here about how to live our lives, and that involves treating people, but certainly Torah scholars on a much higher level. By the way, I don't include myself as a Torah scholar, so anyone can, you should be nice to me, but I'm fine. But a real Torah scholar. So this week's parasha speaks about 37. Upon it shall Aaron bring the spice incense. Okay, the Hebrew is so much easier to read, no? The Hiktar Lav Aaron K'Torah Samim. So what was the spice? The spice was so strong. It was so strong that even in Jerusalem, they said that the women in, I think, Jericho didn't even need to wear perfume because the spice was so good that it smelled so good all over Israel. Now, you would have thought when it comes to, representing something in the temple, something spiritual, you'd need to put it everywhere. No, the spice was hidden. The spice was put in the in the Beis Hamikdash, in the tabernacle, in the wherever it was, in the temple, in the tabernacle. It was put almost hidden away, yet it went so far. And we're saying all these things represent Torah, and that's really the message that a Torah scholar, why is he so great? Because he sits and learns Torah. So if you don't value Torah, if you just think it's a knowledge, and he's more knowledgeable, so there's so much more to that. If you saw somebody who saved lives, not just one, he saved hundreds of lives. He invested in research, and he, dived into the sea and saved 10 people. And this guy saves lives all over the place. Wherever he goes, someone drops and he saves them. He can do CPR on 2 people mouth to mouth at the same time. He's that good. And you'd be like, whoa, this guy's amazing. I respect him. I honor him. I'm gonna be so nice to him. You just look at him. Somebody who's learning Torah, but certainly somebody who's teaching Torah, and really somebody who's a Talmud Chacham, somebody who's a Torah scholar, and even the Gedolim, the greatest rabbis of the generation. Many of the names I've said already, and every time I speak, and I try and mention their names, because there's so much to learn from them and what they do. They're not just learning more. When we learn, it's not just increasing our knowledge. When we learn, you're building the foundations of a better world. We just think we're learning, we're understanding more. It's not true. When we're learning, we're doing mitzvah. It creates the butterfly effect. Is when one butterfly, claps its hands. No, flaps its wings, and there's a tidal wave in Mexico or poor Mexico or wherever there's a tidal wave, wherever the butterfly is, somewhere across the world, there's some sort of wave. Okay, fine, and there's oscillation. And this affects this, and fine, okay? So we think if I learn something more, so, okay, I know more. It's not true. When someone learns Torah, it saves lives, because God is more sanctified in this world. And like we said before, with the Shemen Zayzach, with the pure olive oil, there's a protection. So he learns Torah, it protects not just him, he protects the whole world. I remember there's a story of the Chofetz Chaim. Could be I said it here before, that he had in Radin in Poland many years ago. He was trying to build a hospital, and he brought all the wealthy people together to try and raise money for a hospital, and each bed was X amount of rubles, let's say 100 rubles, and he was there, and his students were there, and all the wealthy people were there. And the wealthy people, he made this pitch, as it were, and one wealthy person said, I'll donate 10 beds, and the other person said, I'll donate 5 beds, and I'll donate 20 beds. Essentially 50 beds out of the 200 beds that were needed were donated. Now the Torah scholars there were there, because I just said they were there, and the Chofetz Chaim, this great rabbi, he honored them greatly. And one of the wealthy men said to the Chofetz Chaim, said, why do you honor them? He said, we're the wealthy guys, we're providing the beds over here. So he looked at him, he said, it's true you're providing beds, but you only did 20, you only did 10. Each of these guys, I'm sure he didn't say guys, each of these wonderful students, they've all given 50 beds. So the wealthy people are astonished, 50 beds. How can these people afford a bed, let alone 50 beds? He said, it doesn't make sense. I understand if they really gave 50 beds, why you'd honor them, but what are you talking about? So the Chofetz Chaim answered, he said, they're giving 50 beds in the beds that aren't going to be needed, because they're learning Torah, and Torah changes the world in such a positive way. Why did I mention the incense? In the recent presidential election, but when I originally, did research into this in 2008's presidential election, I think it was $3.1 billion spent on the official money spent on the election campaign, on advertising. I think, in the recent one, 2020, it's gone up to 6 billion, 6.3 billion. I think I did a bit of research before. I don't know the accurate figures, but there's a lot of money spent to put the candidates front and center in everyone's face. I remember learning history many years ago, I remember in at least in English history, the way that one used to promote your ideas to become prime minister, at least in England, was he used to go to different localities and he used to speak nonstop for 8 hours, and then followed by questions for 4 to 5 hours, and that was their pitch, and people decided who they voted for. That was in the good old days, Then it became 2 hours, and then it became 2 minutes. Now it's like 140 characters. You decide the president on 140 characters. So the message of today is promotion, 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 and you need to get your face or the face of who you want to do in everyone else's face, so they see you the whole time. A Torah scholar, these rabbis, to say, you could just knock on the door. If you're looking at in a book, in most Jewish books written by the greatest rabbis, you want their phone number, you open the page, and it says their phone number. And then their address, and you can actually call them and they will answer. In most circumstances, they will answer. You can ask them a question. These are the greatest people in the world, and they're most approachable. I'm sure they're very, very busy, and they have time dedicated to Torah, and there are times where they're dedicated to other people. But the message is as follows. Just like the incense was hidden away and spread so far, the Torah scholars, why should we respect them so much? Why should we be so happy just because they know more? What does that affect me? You know why it affects me? Because their knowledge, their greater insights into God's behavior, as it were, their greater insights into what God wants from us, why God wrote the Torah in the way that he did. Their greater insights create so much light in this world. It makes God so much brighter in this world. When God is brighter, blessings are more. So we should support them. We should support them as if they're saving everyone's life. If somebody... I heard that somebody made the celebration that they were walking across the street and then they got hit by a car, and they made the kiddush, they made the celebration that their life was saved. And the next guy, someone else said he's going to sponsor this celebration. Every week they would do it, and he's going to sponsor it. Why? He said, because I didn't get hit by the car. He said, I've got more reason to sponsor it. He got hit by a car. He's alive, that's great, but he's got no leg. He had legs, but he was hurt. Me, I didn't even get hit by the car. It's a greater reason to celebrate. We take it for granted. But to so much degree, the merit of the Torah is because it helps us. It helps the world, not just the Jewish people. It helps the entire world. And for that, we should be grateful. For that, we should offer splendor and honor and all the other words, that we said before for Torah scholars. And I guess the message to us, what I've said before. Change our mindset. We started with charity. Change our mindset towards charity, and that will help us give better. And when it comes to Torah, and we should value Torah in a different way, we should change our mindset towards that. And now I'm saying the third message, which we should change our mindset towards those the Torah scholars, the big rabbis, the real rabbis, the great rabbis, and I guess anyone, I think it says in the Talmud that somebody who teaches somebody Torah, it's as if they bore them. We learn it from a verse with the children of Aaron referring to the children. They're called the children of Moshe, if I'm not mistaken, which I could be. And that's the message, that one who teaches Torah is so one's parents. If someone teaches them Torah to one's parents, of course they should honor them. So I've said a lot. This week's parasha for me was a parasha of Torah, of Talmud Torah, of learning Torah, of Torah scholars, the light of the menorah, spreading it. That was for me, and therefore these are some of the messages that I came up with. Plenty more to say. I didn't even get to speak about Purim, but there's lots to say. Maybe I'll be invited back next year.
Would you like to throw a teaser for Purim on the just last minute, couple minutes for you? You're more welcome. Cheers.
You've tempted me. Okay, I'll say one message and okay. Let's apply it to life. Awesome. Because Purim's coming up, it's true, but let's learn the following message. In super duper briefly, the Purim story is a story of the Jewish people about to be decimated, absolutely decimated, men, women, and children. And that being absolutely turned around to them being the favored with the Jewish queen, and them taking revenge on all their enemies. It's really a story of zero to hero, let's say. And within that story, there's one thing that you have to forgive me for just 2 minutes to say a bit more in order to understand the message.
No,
but again, it's a message that we can all take.
Take your time.
Oh, take my time. Okay. So once upon a time, in the Megillah, there was Achashverosh. The story is as follows. So, okay, where do we start? King Achashverosh, he made a meal he was so happy that the temple had not been rebuilt like it was prophesied. He was wrong in terms of the date, but that's what he thought. He made a 180-day meal. Okay, in walks Vashti, with or without a tail, and in walks Vashti, and out. No, she doesn't walk out because she has no head. Vashti is the queen, and in his drunken stupor, he has her decapitated upon the advice of the evil Haman. Okay, in comes, after a beauty pageant, as it were, in comes Esther the queen. Esther the queen is told by Mordecai, her husband and uncle and foster father. Complicated. Don't judge. So he and the greatest rabbi in the world, by the way. So he tells Esther, don't reveal where you're from. Don't reveal you're Jewish. You shouldn't necessarily understand why, but when the rabbi tells you to do something, you do it. So she never revealed as Jewish. Now, okay. Achashverosh, King Achashverosh, he said at this point, well, I want to know where she's from. And I want to honor those where she came from, because my queen came from a certain place. I want to give them respect and honor. But he didn't know where she came from. So what he did was he said, okay, I'm going to give a tax to every single nation of the world, because I don't know where she came from. She could have come from Africa. She could have come from England. She could have come from anywhere. She could have come from anywhere. And therefore, everyone gets tax-free as a respect, because maybe my queen came from there. Okay. Now, Esther didn't reveal she was Jewish. And the whole story of her coming to power and her succeeding and everything ends up in a climax, which is the Jewish people are saved. Haman, the evil Haman, is killed, and all the anti-Semites are destroyed, and the Jewish people accept the Torah anew, and it's a whole new start for the Jewish people amongst their neighbors, but also their connection with God. Okay, so that is, one would end the Megillah on a high note. But how is the Megillah ended? The last verse of the Megillah, I think it is at least, right at the end, is that Achashverosh found out that Esther was Jewish, and he put a tax on the rest of the world. He put a tax on the rest of the world. That's how we end. We see it seems to be, so climactic with the Jewish people have saved and everything's good, and and the end of the day is Achashverosh basically put a tax on the rest of the world. What's the message? And perhaps, as I said, it's a message for us. And there's more to say. I want to say more, but just this maybe is worth saying in the final 45 minutes of my class. Oh, yeah, okay, I'll say it quickly.
I thought it was 50, but okay.
What are we being told? The Megillah, it's true, the Megillah is the one book that God's name isn't mentioned, but he's everywhere in this book. He's everywhere because somebody who can read the Megillah from the beginning to the end, they will see that God did this and God did this, and they will understand it. They'll understand it's God. And no one more so than King Achashverosh should have seen that. However, what we told, his focus was on money. After everything that happened, the next thing that he did was, well, if she's Jewish, that I've been losing a fortune of money, so I'm going to retax everybody else and I'm going to get my money back. That was the message that he came away with. So the message for us and the message for life is with the Megillah and with Purim, but certainly with everything of Torah, is not to be like him, not to come away with he was just, so she was Jewish, that means I've lost so much money. That means, and just focus on that. We should be ending every Torah class, the Megillah, Shabbos, whatever we're involved in, we should be ending with the crescendo and an excitement, with a teaching that we live with and that we can teach other people with, like we said before. So whereas the King Achashverosh, he focused on, all the money he lost, he's trying to get it back. We should focus on the beauty of everything that we're doing, of all our teachings and all our learnings and everything that we're trying to grow in. And it's difficult to grow, but we should take pride in everything that we do. And that's how we should end, on the high note. So those who want to end up on the low note, fine, let them, whatever. It's not, we can't do, but we shouldn't focus on that. We should end off on the high note. We should end off on the note of taking the messages and living with them. That's what the Jewish people did in the story of Megillah, and that's why we celebrate it every year. And it's one of the festivals that's not going to go away. And it's the festival that's going to always be done with excitement and joy. And the message for us is, every time we learn Torah, every message that we learn, everything that we gain, we should share it with others. We should be so excited with it. We should be so excited with it. If we're not excited, learn it again, learn it better, because Torah is exciting. Torah is sweet. Torah is beautiful. Right. So I thank you again for the time, and I think I've gone way over. And
You're good. Not a problem at all. This is all, a lot of people request to have longer than 1 hour shows anyway, so you're going to be giving them all a blessing this week, so that's great. So, guys, don't forget about Rabbi's books. He's got 3-4 books out there now. You can find them on shortvort.com, SHORTVORT. And I'm going to put that
actually, I don't know if they're all available. They're actually all available in your links.
I keep forgetting to say that. Yes, they are. Look at the bottom in the video description area of this video, and you will find, I think it's in line 3 or 4. I've got all the lines numbered, and so I will tell you.
There, but also my wife's book is coming up to Pesach.
Oh,
and
nice.
It's really about that. So if you haven't used it, how's your wife? She's got through it yet?
She's almost getting through. She's about 3/4 of the way through it now. So she's loving it.
It's absolutely the best book she's ever read, second to the Bible.
Honestly, she literally told me this is one of her favorite books. No joke. I know you're being silly, but my wife's being very serious. It's truly one of her favorite books on like this type of thing.
Good.
Yeah.
Can I do a cheap plug and say it's this book?
Yes, absolutely. That's it right there.
Okay, so it's the last day. It's this book.
Hold on.
I'm delighted that she's enjoying it, and maybe you will too when she finishes it.
Yes, if she'll hurry up already. All right, Rabbi. Thank you for your time. We will see you again soon. Definitely, maybe not this coming week. I believe Rabbi Molt will be back, but the following week, I believe we're going to have a dual parsha, and I think that you and I are going to be doing this one. I'm going to be out of town, but we're going to pre-record early enough to set it to go live at 5:30 at the normal time. By the way, I forgot 5:30 was the normal time, not 5. So we kind of hit them a half an hour early today, and I forgot about that. So that was my bad. So, but I figured you.
Does that mean I have to start speaking at 1:30 in the morning?
As late as it is, I didn't want to break it to you anyway. So
live on YouTube. What am I supposed to say now?
Hey, if we pre-record anytime you want to, then I can just send it to
This is the only time the house is quiet, and I've got Peter. This is great. I love this time. It's perfect.
All right, thank you, Shalom, Rabbi. Thank you all for tuning in this week, and we will see you guys. Tune in for tomorrow night. Tomorrow's Thursday. Tomorrow night at 7. There is the two guys exploring the New Testament. So don't miss that. So y'all have a great day. See ya. Thank you, Rabbi.
Shalom, my dear friends. Hope this message finds you well. If you like the way this channel is going, and the channel has been a blessing to you, please consider supporting the channel by going to the website, TaNaChTalk.com. TaNachTalk.com. Thank you once again for your time and for supporting TaNaCh Talk. Shalom.
חשוב והכרחי להיות ביחד. איפוק זו העוצמה, ויתור זו הגדולה, השאיפה